In your study of history this year, you'll be doing some research to find out about significant events, and of course, we know history happened in the past, so unlike a scientific theory, we cannot typically recreate the situation to repeat and disprove or prove what happened. Because history happened in the past, we rely on the accounts of eyewitnesses to figure out what happened. And the funny thing about people is that two people can witness the exact same event, but remember it completely differently. Take a look at these eyewitness accounts about the controversial Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri.
A confrontation at Officer Darren Wilson's police car, then shots fired. For those who claim to know what happened to Michael Brown, that's about all they agree on.
He just reached his arm out the window and grabbed my friend around his neck.
And then, of course, Darren grabs for his gun. Michael grabs the gun. At one point, he got the gun totally turned against his hip. And Darren, shoves it away, and the gun goes off.
His weapon was drawn, and
as he runs, the police get out of his vehicle, and he follows behind him, shooting. And the kid body jerked as if he was hit from behind.
While he was running away from the officer, trying to get away, he was getting shot at. He ran for his life. They shot him, and he fell. He put his arms up to let them know he was compliant.
And once my friend felt that shot, he turned around and he put his hands in the air, and he started to get down.
And then he said all of a sudden, he just started to bum rush him. He just started coming at him full speed. And so he just started shooting, and he just kept coming.
The preliminary autopsy results indicate that Brown was shot twice in the head, 4 times in the right arm, and that all bullets entered from the front.
There's a lot of controversy about what happened.
The police and the lawyers involved in this case are going to need to sift through the eyewitness accounts and forensic evidence to look for consistencies that help piece together what most likely happened. This sifting through evidence and accounts is what historians do to reconstruct events from the past. So how does this relate to your research in history class? Well, the great thing about the internet is that it has made finding information about events really easy. We have access to more information than ever, but the preponderance of misinformation and non-verified information has never been greater also. So even though your parents will tell you that you have it so easy, researching today is harder than ever. Your parents may tell you that back in the day they had to actually go to a library before it closed and muddle with card catalogs and microfiche readers. Yes, that was very inconvenient. But the information that they found had at least been written by a professional and checked for accuracy by an editor or review of experts. Now, you can research 24/7 as long as you have an internet connection. But although access to information has greatly improved, so has the amount of misleading, incorrect, and incomplete information since anyone can post anything to the internet. Here are just 2 examples. MartinLutherKing.org claims to be a true historical examination, but this site was founded and is run by a white supremacist group with ties to the KKK. It is filled with unverifiable claims and downright lies. And this website, which claims to be sponsored by the U.S. Environmental Assessment Center, warns us that dihydrogen monoxide can be lethal to humans in quantities as small as a thimbleful. If you're a Greek or Latin root buff, you may know that the prefix di means 2 and mono means 1. So if we write dihydrogen monoxide out using its chemical formula, we see that dihydrogen monoxide is another name for water. This website is warning you to stay away from something that you need to survive. This is a bogus website, but how can you tell? Well, your first clue is that all government sites use a .gov URL, and this one is using a .org. Second, if you check up on the source by Googling the U.S. Environmental Assessment Center, you will discover that the real government agency is called the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the National Center for Environmental Assessment, the NCEA. And if you go to their site, you will find out where the agency is located and find some actual phone numbers. If you're ever not sure if a site is legitimate, Google it and see if you can find an actual address and contact information. Make sure that the organization exists. If an author's name is listed on a website, Google that person to see if he or she is truly an expert. If you can't verify their expertise easily with the Google search, chances are that person really is not an expert, just a hobbyist with a personal website. When I Google Tom Way, I quickly find that he has a PhD. Good. But it's in computer sciences, not environmental sciences. Sure, he is a smart guy, but he's clearly not an expert on this topic. This is probably a bogus site that he created to see if he could trick his undergrads into thinking the site was legitimate. One quick test I used is to ask myself if this person would be called to testify in a trial about the topic of the website. For example, if there were a trial on the hazards of water, A chemist, biologist, or environmental scientist would be called to testify, but certainly not a computer scientist. So if you're not really thrilled about the idea of researching to find information and then researching the author or organization behind that information, there is an easier way. Online databases are the easy path to information that has been written by experts and reviewed in a professional capacity. If you go to rvmustangs.org and then click on the Cybrary or library link, you'll find some superb history databases on the library website under Databases. If you're researching a current issue, there are 4 databases filled with literally thousands of entries ranging from primary source documents to ebook excerpts to magazine or journal articles. If you continue scrolling, you'll find the history-specific databases. You will need a Jefferson County Public Library card number to access most of these databases. If you don't have one, I have extra generic login accounts available in the library, or I can give you your very own Jefferson County Public Library card on the spot. History in Video is a fabulous resource that gives you access to documentaries, newsreels, and archival footage about history made by PBS, A&E, the BBC, and other reputable publishers. The U.S. in History Context Database brings together ebooks, newspaper magazine, and academic journal articles, along with primary sources, video, and audio about a topic. The information has been curated by historians, so these are usually highly credible, and you get a pre-made MLA citation to go with everything. And the Library of Congress website has the largest collection of primary source documents, pictures, and recordings in the world. It is actually the world's largest library, and a huge percentage of the collection is available to you online. Inevitably, many of you will still want or need to go to Google to search for information, and you can certainly find some research quality information outside the databases. But you just have to be very picky and use only research quality information. Websites like BBC History, PBS, and the History Channel are extremely reputable, and you will do well to use them in your research. But sites like this can be hard to find amidst the other stuff online. There are a lot of history hobbyists out there. Even though the URL for this website might sound legit, there is no organization or expert authors listed. When I try to find out more about the site's authors, I do get an address, but no names, and the hyperlink about the online highways pops up various advertisements. This site does not contain the level of credibility you need. This spectrum illustrates a continuum of the credibility of various online sources. Something like a hobbyist personal website has the lowest credibility, while an academic journal has the highest credibility because not only are the articles written by the preeminent experts in their field, but instead of just being checked by an editor, they are peer-reviewed by other experts in that field prior to being published. Remember, research is not just about being right. The hobbyist may be correct in what he posted on his website, but he lacks credibility. In college, you will probably be required to stick primarily with academic journals in your research. In high school, you will need to stick with any source in the blue section of this research continuum. Notice that Wikipedia is not in the blue section. Don't get me wrong, I really like Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is a really useful site to look at when you're starting your research. Most of the time, the articles are accurate and clear, but because anyone can contribute to a wiki entry, its credibility just can't compete with a site with an expert author whose name and reputation is on the line. Using that court analogy, it would be like calling up a college intern to testify instead of an expert at a court hearing. Wikipedia just doesn't have the street cred in the academic world. In fact, Wikipedia is openly mocked both in the popular media and in academic realms. Here's just one example.
Again, my name is Professor Wikipedia. Let's get started, shall we? In most chemical reactions, the electrons are either forming or breaking bonds with each other, as you shall see here. Ryan Seacrest contains many of the elements necessary to facilitate a chemical reaction. The word enzyme was coined by physiologist Wilhelm Kuhn, widely believed to be a total bad. In 1908, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for mustache.
What? Your tone isn't even close to neutral. And where are you getting these facts?
I don't know.
Come on, let him talk.
Edward Buechner first used enzymes to ferment sugar in 1897.
Professor, I think it was in 1901.
As I was saying, in 1901, Edward Buechner was...
Actually, I think it was 1899.
Then that's what I'll tell everyone from now on.
We were talking about chemical reactions.
Well, sometimes energy emerges from nuclear reactions in the form of X-rays.
I want to learn about that.
Well, X-rays are often mentioned in popular culture in the form of X-ray vision.
Oh, tell us more.
Well, it's an ability possessed by both Superman and Metroid's Samus Aran.
Oh, man. Forgot about all those space pirates.
Just stop it. No, I came here for an education. We haven't learned a single useful fact. Isn't chemistry your area of expertise?
That and Star Wars. Here's a list of every makeup artist that ever worked on the original trilogy.
Why would anybody want to know that?
Now, before I conclude, I'd like to remind you that this class is free. And if you'd like to keep it that way...
He's asking us for money?
So Wikipedia doesn't have the credibility to be considered research quality, and if you cite it in your paper, you will lose credibility in the eyes of your readers. It's fine to read a Wikipedia article to get a general overview of the topic, and you can find some great research quality sources cited at the end of the Wikipedia entry to give you a great next step. But do not cite Wikipedia ever in your academic writing. It will not turn out well for you, especially at the college level. So stick with databases and other research quality sources to make your research and writing more convincing. But let me just close with a warning from the great thinker, Dr. Gregory House, from the TV show House.
It's the basic truth of the human condition that everybody lies. The only variable is about what.
Dr. House is pretty grim on human nature, and maybe not everyone intentionally lies, but everyone has personal bias. So use databases and credible sources to find the best information available, but always be on the lookout for bias, even in reputable sources. If one source seems to be outside what all of the others are saying, it may be overly biased. So stay smart out there, stick with those credible sources, and be on the lookout for bias to ensure that you're as successful as you can be on your research assignments.